Hello and welcome back. I'm Joshua Barnes and you're watching NewsX World. Let's first take a look at our top stories. At least 8 people have died, according to Iranian media, after what is being described as a terrorist attack. 5 civilians and 3 assailants have been killed after an attack on a judiciary building in southeastern Iran. That, according to state-run media reports. US President Donald Trump says Hamas didn't want a deal as the US and Israel walk away from peace talks. Amid uncertainty over diplomacy, Israel has said it will allow countries to drop aid into Gaza by air, as the UN says a third of Gazans are starving, with 122 hunger deaths reported. Meanwhile, UN Chief Antonio Guterres has urged for immediate action in Gaza to stop reported starvation, stating that words don't feed starving children. This comes as President Trump slams Emmanuel Macron's planned announcement recognising a Palestinian state. EU officials say a trade deal with the US could be possible this weekend. It comes as Donald Trump has arrived in Scotland for a 4-day visit, where he will also meet EU Chief Ursula von der Leyen on Sunday, ahead of an August 1st deadline. The US has warned China to stop fueling Russia's aggression in Ukraine at the United Nations ahead of potential US sanctions on buyers of Russian energy. China hits back, accusing Washington of trying to shift the blame and spark controversy. Cambodia has called for an immediate ceasefire as military action along the disputed border with Thailand enters its 3rd day. This comes after dozens of casualties were reported on both sides, with over 200,000 people now displaced from the border region. A bus travelling from Lima to Peru's Amazon region has overturned in the Andes Mountains, leaving at least 18 people dead. The double-decker bus overturned on a highway with dozens of further passengers injured, according to local authorities. And Ghislaine Maxwell, an associate of the late financier Jeffrey Epstein, is seeking a Supreme Court hearing in a bid to overturn her conviction. This comes amid allegations about Epstein's relationship with top US officials, including President Trump. The US president denies it as fake news. But we start this hour in Iran, and gunmen from the Sunni Jaish al-Adl Baluch group have reportedly attacked a courthouse in Iran's restive southeastern Sistan Baluchistan province. There are over 8 people, including 5 civilians and 3 assailants, who are being reported dead in the attack, while many have been rushed to hospital. While there is limited information available at the moment, the semi-official FARS news agency said there may have been a suicide bomber involved in the assault. Reports suggest that gunmen opened fire and stormed judges' chambers. Jaish al-Adl Baloch Sunni Jihadistan organisation has reportedly claimed responsibility for the attack. The Sistan Baluchistan province frequently sees clashes between Iranian security forces and armed groups. The Iranian government accuses some of these groups of ties to foreign powers and involvement in cross-border smuggling and insurgency. Well, of course, information at the moment is limited. The situation on the ground is yet to be verified, but Iranian state media reporting an attack in terrorist nature at a court building. Joining us to try and dissect this information and understand some more about it, Ali M. Abushbak, a Middle East researcher, joining us live from Cairo. Ali, first of all, thank you for joining us. Could you provide us with any context that you have, of course, given your knowledge as a Middle East researcher, but also some further context on the situation in this area of Iran?
Thank you, Joshua. The thing is, the violence in Iran today from the Baluch minority, while this minority is suffering from the militarization, and maybe this is as a response from them, from the Iranian regime. While the conflict it's continuous, the Baluch minority in Iran are demanding for more rights, about freedom and about this freedom of speech, and giving them a right, while the Iranian regime pretend them as a second class and second level class. That's complicated the situation with the Baluch and the Iranian regime. This is a several of minority in Iran. They are demanding for rights, like also Arab minority in Tehran, and so that's make it more complicated. And also, this is a border area that's sharing with Afghanistan and Pakistan. So maybe this also we have witnessed in the beginning when Taliban ruling the Afghanistan. There is a clashes happened in the border between Iran and Afghanistan. So maybe this Baluch minority got being supported from Taliban regime, and they are asking for their rights and not treating with them as a second class. So I guess this a normal response and action from this minority who's demanding for their rights, while Iran reject all their demands, Joshua.
Yes, absolutely. And just to provide some context, of course, if you are just joining us, reports on the ground suggesting that gunfire and potentially an explosion heard after an apparent terrorist attack being reported by Iranian state media. Limited information, but we will, of course, continue to bring you every update that we get from this developing story out of Iran. Ali, thank you for that insight. You will be staying with us as we move away now from Iran, but stay within the Middle East. The Israeli military confirmed on Saturday that a projectile was fired from the Gaza Strip towards Israel, reportedly falling in an open area without causing injuries. Amid growing international pressure over the humanitarian crisis in Gaza, Israel has agreed to allow foreign countries, including the UAE and Jordan, to conduct airdrops of aid into the enclave starting this Friday. The move follows mounting concerns over widespread hunger and malnutrition, particularly among children. World Central Kitchen, an international relief organisation, has resumed operations in Gaza after a pause last year due to the deaths of workers in an Israeli airstrike. Despite criticism of aid drops as an insufficient aid method, aid groups continue to warn of a worsening famine in the region, with more than 100 reported deaths from malnutrition. Calls for a ceasefire continue, with the UN Emergency Relief Coordinator Tom Fletcher urging immediate action. Meanwhile, Israel and the US are reportedly exploring alternative options to secure the release of hostages as talks with Hamas break down. The humanitarian situation in Gaza continues to deteriorate as limited supplies have been allowed in. Well, Ali, thank you for holding on with us. There's multiple facets to these updates that we've had on the ongoing situation in Gaza. But let's first look at aid. Of course, currently the GHF, the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation, operating within the enclave. Several reports of deaths, potentially being over 1,000 for Palestinians trying to seek aid. There has been global pressure on easing aid restrictions. Israel now saying that aid will be allowed in by air, but questions being raised about quite how much aid will get in. And I also want to point out the fact that Israel have said they don't want aid to get into the wrong hands, but these aid drops won't be monitored. They will fall randomly. Of course, they can pick locations, but there's nothing stopping Hamas going and getting that aid. So what do you think Israel's intention is with this move?
Joshua, the situation in Gaza is completely dire. So people are suffering from starvation and the famine. More than 100,000 of children, they are suffering from starvation. And the report on the ground, it's a terrible. About the GHF, everyone, every organization and government organization, international communities, international organization, they are criticizing their behavior and their work on the ground. While every day we are hearing from the report that more than 100 civilian and whose pursue for humanitarian aid have been killed by Israelis fire and by the GHF. And we have witnessed several of footage on the ground how the army from the security army they are treating with a civilian. Yesterday, they are specified a day for a woman to gather and to collect a humanitarian aid. And they prohibited for the men to go to that area. Despite that, according to witness women, they didn't obtain any single of humanitarian aid. And they have said that, according to report that leaked from Gaza, they are humiliated the people from there that place. Dropping the air, the humanitarian aid from the air, and we have witnessed that during the completely besieged from northern part of Gaza and Jordan, Egypt, and several of country conducted this operation, and several of people have been killed, and they consider it as the humiliation for the civilians in Gaza. And deeply criticized from United Nations, while several of people have been killed. I guess if they will go for this stage, they will increase the chaos in Gaza, and people will killing each other because they are starving. Anyone who will obtain or get a sack of flour, they will kill each other to take it. Make it a more chaos in the community, and making complicated the situation more than it's ongoing now. So the thing is about Israel, as well as Israelis media deeply lambasted the behavior of Benjamin Netanyahu and his government coalition. The day before yesterday, Benjamin Netanyahu, the Israeli.
Yes, Ali, sorry to interject. I'm conscious of how much time we have, and I do want to touch on diplomacy. Big, significant developments coming through overnight. The US and Israel withdrawing from talks, saying Hamas do not want a deal. What is needed internationally, potentially, or through mediators like Qatar and Egypt, in order to push Hamas towards a deal? We know that Steve Witkoff announced a 60-day ceasefire proposal. Israel said yes, Hamas said no. Talks have been going for weeks. There was optimism from both Israel and the US, both Benjamin Netanyahu and Trump talking about a deal being close. From their perspective, Hamas is the thing holding that deal back. At what point does humanity come before Hamas's aims?
Joshua, the delegate, but let me complete this point. The day before yesterday, the Israeli delegation have been left Qatar during the 18 days of indirect negotiation. Israeli media have been deeply lambasted the behavior of Benjamin Netanyahu. On the ground, Hamas has no power in Gaza, and we have witnessed that just only Izzeddin al-Qassam, the militant group of Hamas, have been conducted many operations in Gaza. It's not about who said yes or who said no about the negotiation and to continue solve the crisis in Gaza. International community called for a ceasefire, and not only for truce, for temporary ceasefire, for complete ceasefire. And according to many observers, they consider that negotiation while the war in Gaza it's continuous. There is no global of hope. Should be the fighting stopped and the ceasefire have been conducted, and then after that, the negotiation has some progress. The significant issue with Hamas, it was about the Israelis seizing several of area in Gaza, while Hamas asking Israel to withdraw from this area. This is a significant issue, according to many news reports. I guess the international community pressurized Israel for accepting the ceasefire and for releasing the whole captive from Gaza in one time. So this is make it more complicated. About the releasing 10 of hostages from Gaza, everyone accepted, even Hamas accepted. But the significant issue, it was about the area that Israel seized in Gaza, when it will withdraw. It's not about. It's also about applying the negotiation and the term of negotiation. While Benjamin Netanyahu, he's not accepting. He's continuously saying we have a right to resume the war at any time. Hamas want guarantee to stop the war, want guarantee to apply the negotiation term. but Israel also denied this kind of this term. This is one hand. On other hand, we have witnessed several of Israelis prime minister. They are flaunting with the famine in Gaza, flaunting with the Israeli policy on the ground. That's complicated the situation, which make the international community frustrated from the Israelis' behavior. Israelis community as well as they are taking the street to protest against the Benjamin Netanyahu policy. And then no one knows what happened. When the Benjamin Netanyahu, he left Israel to United Nations and he considered that they are close to conduct, they are close to reach to the to ceasefire and to deal with Hamas. While after that, it was just only like a manipulating the international community and Israeli community as well as. That's what Israelis media also consider it. There is a deeply lambast for this behavior. There is no glimmer of hope. Benjamin Netanyahu is playing in time and he's trying to buy time more. There is for no reason. This is a significant issue. Why? Civilian in Gaza, they are suffering from that. They are only the casualties from this war, and the civilian who's suffering. The 1 kg of potato or tomato, 1 kg, it's $50. Can you imagine 1 kg? And it's not available in market. Make it the situation more terrible on the ground. Civilian, there is no supplies.
Ali,
there is no.
Yes, we of course understand the situation on the ground is difficult. Diplomacy now stalling as well. Both sides in this war suffering with hostages being held in Gaza still by Hamas. And of course, a civilian situation on the ground, which many experts saying it is a famine with deaths now being reported because of hunger. A difficult situation. Ali, thank you so much for providing an insight in this discussion. We will, of course, continue to monitor all of the developments that are ongoing in the Gaza Strip. But we now head to Europe, and US President Donald Trump has arrived in Scotland for some Gulf and bilateral talks that could yield a trade deal with the European Union. While speaking on his visit, Trump has said that he will visit 2 Gulf properties in Scotland and meet with British Prime Minister Keir Starmer. There are also reports of Trump meeting the EU Chief Ursula von der Leyen. Trump said in his meeting with Starmer it would be more of a celebration of the trade deal that's already been reached than continued work on it. The trip gives Trump and Starmer a chance to deepen their already warm ties with key issues on the agenda, potentially to include ending the Russia-Ukraine war and the British-US relations. Trump has sought to reorder the global economy after imposing a 10% tariff on nearly all trading partners in April and threatening sharply higher rates for many countries to kick in around a week's time. Trump says the moves will reduce the US trade deficit and bring in extra revenue. Well, joining me live from the newsroom, Thomas Porteous, anchor and correspondent, to provide some more context on this visit. Thomas, it's not just Gulf. There is, of course, a key diplomatic conversations that are set to take place. What more can you tell us?
Well, yes, of course, Josh. Obviously, this has been pitched as a largely personal trip for Donald Trump, where he will spend both Saturday and Sunday at his privately owned family golf courses, both in Ayrshire and Aberdeenshire. He's expected to also open a new course in the Isle of Lewis, where his mother is from. It's a very close relationship to Scotland. However, on Monday, that's when we get to the diplomacy. That's when Donald Trump is pitched to meet with British Prime Minister Keir Starmer, also Scotland's Minister John Swinney, who has said that he is going to bring up humanitarian issues, mainly in regard to the Gaza crisis and also the war in Ukraine as well. However, this comes at mounting pressure for Donald Trump, obviously at home domestically with his controversy surrounding the Epstein files, and obviously internationally with the Gaza crisis. British Prime Minister Keir Starmer has been facing criticism from his MPs. We saw that letter of over 200 British MPs to the British government to recognise Palestinian statehood, along with France, who's obviously also officially going to do that in September. So Keir Starmer himself is facing huge pressure in regard to this. Donald Trump also. So this weekend, very much golf on the agenda. However, politics and headlines, as we know, do not never fail to follow Donald Trump around.
Yes, absolutely, Thomas. Some developments that we can expect coming out of Scotland involving Donald Trump, and we will, of course, continue to monitor those. You will be staying with us and joining us later in the programme. But first, voters across Taiwan are heading to the polls in an unprecedented recall election targeting 1/5 of the island's parliament, all from the opposition. Kuomintang supporters of the recall say it's a fight to protect Taiwan's sovereignty and send a message to China, while critics argue it's an attack on democracy. The outcome could dramatically shift Taiwan's legislative power, although President Lai Ching-te won last year's election. His Democratic Progressive Party lost its majority in the parliament. Since then, the opposition has used its strength to pass controversial laws and cut budgets, including defence spending. The DPP hopes this recall could restore its control. Meanwhile, Taipei has accused Beijing of unprecedented election interference, warning that China is trying to sway the outcome and discredit Taiwan's democratic process. China's state media and Taiwan Affairs Office have publicly echoed KMT's criticism of President Lai, whom they label a separatist. The vote comes amid rising military and diplomatic pressure from Beijing, which continues to claim Taiwan as part of its territory. As Taiwan heads to the polls, opinions on the ground remain divided. Some voters see the recall as crucial to defending the island's future. Others call it a costly distraction. Let's listen to some voters.
一罢免票。那么，我投这个票的原因是因为，我觉得台湾已经在一个很重要的时刻，而这个时刻关乎我们未来这个国家的命运，还有我们怎么样来，主要是我们一个最强大的敌人，而且这个敌人跟我们的距离非常的。
我今天是投不同意，不同意，我感觉这位立委来讲的话，是一直算是做得不错的。虽然是来讲的话，对于这个执政者来讲的话，他是一个反对的角色，但是他是做他的责任，他尽他的责任在做。
Well, joining us on the programme, Dr. Satoru Nagao, a fellow at the Hudson Institute, joining us from Tokyo, Japan. As always, a pleasure, Dr. Nagao. We spoke earlier in the day with Ross Feingold about the ramifications within Taiwan for this vote and this election and recall. Can we now look at the wider regional sort of actions that might follow this vote? Of course, we're looking at potentially President Lai's party gaining a majority and gaining control of the lower house, or alternatively, this could be a shift away from a president who, of course, has spoken about independence from China. What are the wider regional ramifications of this election?
This is very important because President Lai tried to prepare the budget to strengthen their military, but the parliament, majority of the parliament is opposition party, and stop this budget and reduce the defense budget. That has happened. Now, under the President Trump, there is a high possibility that the United States will ask Taiwan to pay the 10% of the GDP, which is nearly all budget of the national budget of Taiwan, indeed. But simply said, the U.S. asked Taiwan to pay more for defense. But despite this, because of the parliament, President Lai cannot reply, even if the Taiwan crisis is a matter. So under such kind of situation, which party is a majority in the parliament is a matter of concern. And currently, if 6 of the 24 as recalled under this vote, in this case, of course, within the 3 months, a new election has happened for this 6 or more than 6, and majority could change. Of course, there is also the possibility the opposition party maintains the majority in the next election after the recall, but at the same time, there is a chance the ruling party gets a majority in the parliament, and the President Lai's policy related to the defense is affected by this shift of the majority in the parliament. So that is very important indeed.
Yes, absolutely. Dr. Satoru Nagao, thank you ever so much for taking the time to join us and provide that insight. We will, of course, continue to monitor that election and bring you the results when we get them. Moving on now, though, and Australia and the United Kingdom have now signed a landmark 50-year defence treaty under the AUKUS partnership, strengthening their military cooperation well into the future. We brought you this update yesterday, but it has now been signed in Geelong by Defence Ministers Richard Marles and John Healey. The Geelong Treaty will support the design, construction, operation and eventual disposal of nuclear-powered submarines under the AUKUS Pact, originally launched in 2021 with the US to counter growing tensions in the Indo-Pacific region. The UK estimates the deal could bring in up to £20 billion in submarine-related exports over the next 25 years. This comes as Australia continues its largest ever war games, Talisman Sabre, involving 40,000 troops from 19 nations, with Britain ramping up its presence, including the HMS Prince of Wales aircraft carrier. Despite a formal review of the pact by the Trump administration in the US, Canberra remains confident AUKUS will stay on course, having already paid an $800 million Australian dollar contribution in its latest round. Moving on now, and in a tragic incident on Friday, a bus carrying 66 passengers overturned in the Andes Mountains of central Peru, resulting in at least 18 fatalities and dozens of people injured. The vehicle, travelling from Lima to La Merced, went off the road in the district of Palca and fell into a ravine. Survivors reported mechanical issues with the bus prior to the crash. Local authorities, including police, firefighters and community members, have been conducting rescue operations to locate and assist survivors amid the wreckage. The bus, operated by Expresso Molina Leida International, was a double-decker carrying people which plummeted into the ravine, landing on its roof. Authorities are still in the process of identifying the victims. Well, we welcome back anchor and correspondent Thomas Porteous live from the newsroom to provide some more insights on this tragic incident that has seen at least 18 people die.
Well, yes, Joshua, as you said, this bus was travelling from the Peruvian capital into the Andes Mountains when this tragic incident happened. 20 so far confirmed dead, over 40 taken to hospital in a serious condition. There's been some quite troubling visuals that have come out of this accident, one of which was shown by local TV of the bus splitting in half as it plummeted down the side of the treacherous road. These roads in the Andes especially are very dangerous to drive on, especially when in regards to the width of them. They're very well known as being very, very dangerous places to drive, and as this situation develops, we will continue to bring you all the information, and we can only hope those in hospital do recover.
Yes, absolutely. A tragic incident, of course, leading to many deaths, but sharing Thomas's sentiments, we of course wish those who are recovering all of the best as they continue their recovery in hospital. But now let's take a look at some of the latest news updates from across the world of business. Mexico's antitrust body COFECE says 21 banks, including HSBC, Santander and Scotiabank, may have fixed fees on deferred credit card payments. A 649-page document containing details of allegations that the banks met regularly to set surcharges and exclude certain merchants. The case now enters a trial-like phase where banks can defend themselves. Moving on, Meta has named Shengjia Zhao, co-creator of ChatGPT and GPT-4, as chief scientist of its super intelligence lab. This confirmed by CEO Mark Zuckerberg. Zhao, a former OpenAI researcher, will work closely with Zuckerberg and Meta's AI chief Alexander Wang to shape the lab's scientific direction. His hiring is part of Meta's aggressive talent push following the disappointing performance of its Llama 4 model. Meanwhile, Meta has been offering big payouts and deals to attract top AI minds as it seeks to catch up with rivals in the advanced AI space. Around 20% of NASA's workforce, relating to 3,870 employees, are set to leave the agency, according to a NASA spokesperson. The space agency, which currently employs around 17,900 people, will be left with approximately 14,000 employees after the departures. The exact number could change in the coming days and weeks. While the agency hasn't specified the reason for the large-scale exit, the move represents a significant change in NASA's staffing levels, potentially impacting ongoing missions and operations across its various divisions. Chinese Premier Li Qiang has called for a global organisation to coordinate artificial intelligence development and security. Speaking at the World AI Conference in Shanghai, Li said global AI governance remains fragmented, with countries differing on regulations and rules. He urged stronger international coordination to form a broadly accepted framework. His remarks come amid growing technological tensions between China and the US, which has placed export restrictions on advanced AI chips over concerns about their potential military use. Well, that is all we have time for, but we will continue to bring you more of the latest breaking news from across the world.